Welcome to our workshop. Over the next 30 minutes, we're going to take a look at the black box of CTV incremental reach. I'm Matt Steinmetz, SVP of Events at Adweek. It is my great pleasure to welcome our trio of experts here. I want to first thank our terrific partner, iSpot TV, for their support, for making this workshop possible. And now, please allow me to introduce our panelists. Isaac Ortiz, Regional Director, Customer Success at iSpot TV. Doug Paladino, Programmatic Lead, Camelot Strategic Marketing and Media. And last but not least, Steve Hartmann, Head of Integrated Marketing, Experian. So we're going to take a look at how Experian and Camelot optimized cross-screen TV ad impact with iSpot TV to stretch their ad impact, stretch their budget further, become more efficient, and ultimately to boost their incremental reach. I think they've got a really fascinating story, so we appreciate you guys being here and giving them your attention. So please welcome our panelists.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for your time. It looks like we got a pretty packed house here, which is awesome. And Doug and Steve, I'm super excited to be with you guys today. It's crazy. We've been working together for years, and this is actually kind of the first time we get to hang out. So I'm excited about the story you're about to tell. Why don't we just kind of jump into it? Kind of love to get your thoughts, Steve. Maybe you can help open it up for us. I know the TV video landscape is changing. Can you kind of share how Experian has evolved over the years and your approach to that?
Sure. So, I guess, the topic is convergent TV. We're going to get to that, but I think early on, when we were thinking about how we bought our TV, a few years back, always wish that there was tools available to make our buys just make our buys smarter, right? To buy TV the way we buy digital. That was always the goal of marketers. And, at Experian, we had this, we always had the strategy of high reach live sports. That was an always on strategy for our media buys, anchor around football and March Madness and the Olympics and other high reach placements. And then, we wanted to, layer that in with, really efficient, cable and just standard TV buy. But the problem was, we still just didn't really have the measurement, the targeting, the attribution, that you'd have with like a digital campaign. And so, one of the things we did early on, about 4.5 years ago, Isaac, I don't even know now. You were probably, I'm not sure if you were even at iSpot at the time, but we launched with iSpot doing some pixel-based measurement, really basic stuff, but it was great to, to kind of have that and at least have a signal of performance, especially with some of the high reach stuff that we were doing. And then on the targeting side, we felt, we looked at a partner, Simul Media, where we started buying audiences versus just buying programming. So all these things were just kind of, kept coming along, allowing us to get smarter and smarter. And then, we knew our audience was getting younger. We knew, linear TV was getting older. We knew that, we knew that we wanted to get into CTV. That's where everyone was going. We just didn't have that. We didn't have the measurement in place there. And, I think that was just always something like, I'm going to buy this, but I'm kind of buying it blindly. And so, we give a little bit of budget here and a little bit of budget there, but we wouldn't really fully commit. It wasn't like an always on strategy. And we didn't have like a big percentage of our budget going there. So, we went to the, we went to Camelot with the challenge of, hey, let's figure out how to measure this. And, and you guys looked at a bunch of partners and we ended up with iSpot, but I think this is this is kind of the evolution. This is where we've, where we started TV versus, video versus CTV versus now the combination of the two. So I think that's kind of the evolution of, where we are and kind of sets it up for the story that we're about to tell.
Perfect. You want to switch? Okay, perfect. So Doug, maybe you can dig in a little bit from the agency, perspective. How has the partnership with iSpot provided value for clients like Experian?
Yeah. So as Steve said, we'd been kind of dipping our toes into CTV, and everything was walled off and segmented, and it had really been a black box for us. And we were really relying on every different DSP to grade their own homework. And all of those DSPs have different device graphs. They have different attribution methodology. So it was really tough for us to compare a $50 CPA in one DSP to a $100 CPA in another. And that's where iSpot came in to allow us to tie all that together across all of our video buys, CTV to CTV, but also to linear. And so we're kind of using it like an ad server to attribute everything we're doing across our entire buy through one lens. And so like for us, year over year, our CTV percentage of our broadcast buy hasn't grown significantly. But by using this data, we've been able to stretch our CTV dollars a lot further and improving our CPA by 9% so far this year. But really, that's just one of our KPIs.
Do you want to go into a couple other KPIs?
Yeah. So I think there are really three major benefits of what we're getting out of the iSpot cross-channel measurement data. The first is that we have these new KPIs to look at for the first time. We are now looking at things like our channel incremental reach, like what percentage of our CTV reach is actually incremental to what we're doing on linear. We can look at our incremental reach percentage, like how much actual household reach are we adding through this buy. Looking at our cost per incremental household, trying to be as efficient as possible there. Obviously, CPA will continue to be a major KPI for us, and we're actually able to look at that again all through the same lens. And then incremental CPA is really a metric that we're using to kind of tie together all of those metrics and have one metric to say, okay, publisher A is a better performer than publisher B for us.
So in your opinion, Doug, do you think there's kind of a one-size-fits-all solution, or do you feel like there's maybe different strategies for different platforms or different tactics?
Great question. I think there's different strategies depending on what we're prioritizing at that time and what our strategy is. And I'll touch on that in a bit, but we've really built different playbooks for what to do to drive reach and what to do to drive performance. And so we're employing those differently at different times.
Okay.
Yeah. So the second thing we're really getting out of this data is the ability to inform our cross-channel budget allocations. And to that point, like if we really want to drive reach for a new product offering that's coming out, we might lean a little heavier in linear TV, where there's broader reach. But if we want to drive performance, we might lean a little heavier in connected TV. But the first thing we did when we got this data was really confirm a hypothesis that we had, was that the household level targeting we can get at a precise level on CTV is really worth the higher cost. We might be paying 3 times higher CPMs on connected TV than we are in linear, but we're seeing much better performance to justify that. And so then we're using that data at a more granular level to understand like what pockets of CTV are driving incremental reach for us, and we can position our buy to be to better complement what we're doing on linear. And so for doing that throughout this year, we've already seen a 133% increase in our CTV incremental reach just by using this data to try to find where we get our incremental reach from and allocating our budget accordingly.
Finding the right partners.
Exactly.
Yep. Makes sense. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about each of the channels.
Yeah.
Linear versus CTV.
Yeah. So as I said, linear TV has proven to be a really efficient driver of reach for us. We have a very robust strategy of getting, high reach placements like the NFL and March Madness, but also supplementing that with really, really efficient and targeted cable buys. And that has worked well for us for years. But what we found through this is that, what we're doing on the CTV side is driving much better performance from a site and app activity standpoint. So we're seeing much better cost per site visits, much better installs, much better sign up rates. And so that's been really important for us. And again, we've kind of built playbooks for both of these and are employing them based on our strategy at that time. But we're actually going a level deeper, like with this data, we're getting what's the CPA of, app A versus app B. And we're looking at this app by app, but also even like what's the optimal buying platform for that app. Should we be buying Roku devices on Roku DSP? Or should we be buying Samsung TV Plus on Samsung Samsung ads, or Samsung devices on Samsung ads? So we've been testing all that stuff to try to figure out what is the most optimal way to buy this particular pocket of inventory that performs well for us.
And you're able to optimize down to the granularity that you're able to see in the data?
Absolutely. So we're getting that data really at like an impression, we're using DSP macros to get at an impression device publisher level, like what's the conversion rate of this? What is the incremental reach of this? And then using that across all of our buys, kind of aggregating that and allocating budget according to performance.
Quick question, just in terms of creative, for example, is there anything different that you guys are doing on linear versus the CTV that could be contributing to some of the higher responses you're seeing in that channel? Or do you think it just happens to be the ad experience, not being able to skip or some other things of that nature?
It's a good question. You want to take that?
Sure. No, I mean, the creative's generally about the same. I mean, we have testimonials that kind of drive a little bit harder for us performance wise, but we also have, John Cena ads that, are kind of the big branding ads that, we also run together, and honestly, they don't perform that differently. So we know that the creative is it's not really like the DR creative that's driving, this efficiency. I think it's more, really the platform itself and what's happening. I think, just to jump on some of the stuff that Doug was saying, I think some of the most interesting findings have just been the identification of these buying platforms and the efficiencies of buying the same content from a different platform, and finding, efficiencies in the data, in the apps and the devices. And, thinking about it, you're always just like, on the face of it, you feel like, okay, I'm just buying Roku and I'm buying it through OneView and I'm buying, and it's just like the singular thing. But it actually, if you play with it a little bit more, and obviously a lot of optimizations happening from the Camelot side, but yeah, there's efficiencies to be had like all over the place. And so that was surprising to us, honestly.
Yeah, just one example of that. We had one particular publisher that we were buying through two different DSPs, and it was actually a $3 cheaper CPM through one DSP, but plugging iSpot data into both of those, like we actually found that DSP, despite a cheaper CPM, actually performed 3 or 30% worse from a CPA standpoint. And that's the kind of learning we never would have had without iSpot over top of this. If each of those DSPs were grading their own homework, we would have assumed that the cheaper one was better and allocated our budget there.
Right. Or just making a decision based on CPM alone, right? I'm going to go with
exactly.
Right. So it's worthwhile to pay the premium, in your opinion.
Absolutely. Yep.
Cool. What's the next slide? Perfect. You want to go into a little bit of the data here?
Yeah. So, just kind of looking at what we've done so far this year, what we're looking at is spend and reach, percentage of households reached by channel for the first half of this year. And, we talked about what we're doing on the site and app activity side, but we've really also been using this to grow our CTV reach. And as a percentage of households reached, like CTV has grown from 8% of our household reach in January to 11% in June. That might not sound like a lot, but that's about a 30% increase in reach, really, with our CTV budgets staying, roughly flat. There's not a material change there. And so we've been able to improve that, get more reach out of those dollars by number one, reducing our cost per household reach, finding cheaper inventory, and two, proving that we can maintain CPA at a lower frequency. And that's one of the advantages of OTT. We're serving through a DSP. We can control frequency. We don't need to have a frequency of 20 per month to a household like we do on linear. We can keep this tighter and really stretch the same dollars further to reach more households. And then on the cost per household reach, this is another thing that we've been tracking closely throughout this year. And I think we've seen really strong impact from the iSpot data here this year. Industry benchmarks for cost per household reached are in the $200 to $300 range, both on linear and on OTT. And as you can see, we've been blowing those away on both channels. And that's through, we have really robust optimized buys on the linear side through 4.5 years of using this data to drive efficient reach there. And on the OTT side, we've seen throughout this year, like we've driven much more efficient reach. We've seen our cost per household reach go down 14%. But we've really seen the impact on the incremental reach. Our cost per incremental household has improved 63% throughout this year using this iSpot data to figure out, which pubs are driving incremental reach to linear. And also, we've tested a bunch of different ways to extend incremental reach. So, can we suppress people who are heavy linear TV viewers, or can we suppress households that are subscribed to a linear plan? Or can we suppress people who have actually seen an Experian ad in the last 7 days and make sure that our dollars are going to somewhere to a household that's incremental?
And that's why I love working with you guys. I mean, so many people we work with are just barely scratching the surface, and you guys are like digging so deep into it and thinking about it in such complex ways. It's amazing. Kind of went through the journey of how we got here to today, and kind of what you guys are doing today, and some of the great goal success you're seeing. What's coming up next?
Yeah, a few things. I think we're at a really exciting time. This space, we're just getting started with this. We're 8 months into this project, and we've already seen some like immense learnings. But there's a lot more to test. There's some improvements to the iSpot product that we're really excited about. We're going to have an expansion of really what iSpot can measure, expand their scope, so we can unlock additional buying platforms and see more of our buy in the same lens.
Stay tuned.
There's new iSpot reporting capabilities that just came out where you can actually see, you can kind of filter by linear network. And I can actually isolate like a particular linear TV buy and then see what CTV apps are incremental to that in particular. So you can kind of customize what you're doing based on what you're doing on the linear side. And then third, I think there's some iSpot panel enhancements coming as well. I think getting additional TV manufacturers into your panel will really improve the accuracy and allow for more testing there too. There's a lot of untapped value, I think, in the long tail CTV. We've proven which audiences work well for us, and if we can take those audiences and find them on cheaper inventory, then great, we'll get better performance. But we can only test so many things at once, and having that larger panel will give us a lower minimum threshold to do a test, and so we can find more pockets that are working well for us.
Yeah, I mean, great to have you guys on the journey with us. I don't know, Steve, if you anything to add there, kind of what's coming up next for you guys.
I mean, Doug definitely hit on all the key ones. I think, for our purposes, like just investing more. Right now our calendar or our fiscal year ends in March, and so calendar year Q1 ends up being a really important quarter for us. So just taking all these learnings and investing more, giving these guys more more room to work and solve for these things. And I think pressure testing some of these buying platforms, and I guess the combinations of it all that we've seen success with, and really like going deep there. We're not afraid to spend money. We buy we buy a lot of expensive programming on linear. It's like we've still just kind of scratched the surface on CTV, I feel like. And but now that we have this measurement capability, like it's a game changer. So it's for me to now say, okay, I want to go from 20% of my broadcast spend into CTV. I can go to 30-35%, which is kind of getting closer now to the industry average. So for me, it's exciting to get to this point, really, because a year ago we probably wouldn't have been having these conversations. We wouldn't have even thought it was possible. So it's good.
Yeah, awesome. For the audience here, I mean, what are some maybe key takeaways the audience can take home with them?
Yeah, I think there are a few. First and foremost, I think we're at a point now where this new space has really been built out, and the reporting is there. We can actually now compare linear and OTT through the same attribution model. And, I think every brand should be using a tool like iSpot. We've been getting immense learnings out of this, and it's something that has easily paid for itself in terms of efficiency gained. Both from linear to OTT, but even from like CTV DSP to CTV DSP, and finding the right place to buy certain things. We've gotten huge learnings out of that. Secondly, I think we're always going to need to buy through multiple buying platforms. We're always going to need to buy YouTube from Google. We're always going to need to buy the Roku channel from Roku, and we're always going to need to buy Freevee from Amazon. I think that's a new name. But iSpot is there to help us really optimize and measure those together, right? And we're no longer in a black box of each partner grading their own homework, and so we can actually compare performance and A/B test them, and see the same inventory through multiple platforms, and figure out the best way to buy a particular user on a particular publisher on a particular device and optimize at that granular of a level. And third, I think the part that like we're just starting to dip our toes into is customizing your CTV strategy for what you're doing on the linear side. So like we know, we're buying Sunday Night Football on NBC, and I can now see like which particular apps on the OTT side are driving a lot of incremental reach to Sunday night, to NBC on a Sunday night. And so we can figure out like what's the best way to maximize our reach at that particular time and make sure we're reaching as many households as possible.
Awesome. Why don't we open it up Q&A to the audience here? We have a few minutes. Anybody have a question we can help answer? Sorry, we can't see much in the bright lights. I don't know if anybody has their hand up.
I was wondering, do you ever look at audiences, or because you're looking at, sorry, my voice is a little scratchy today. You're looking at the different channels. Each one has a different identity graph. But are you slicing it? Because I'm guessing that a big reason for the variation in effectiveness is due to the audience, right?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things we're A/B testing now is like, Hulu inventory, we can buy across a number of different DSPs, and where's the best place to buy that inventory, right? And like, what's that DSP that's unique to a generally available app? And so we've been testing a lot of different audiences, using each platform's lookalike audiences, like users in market for credit card are generally a good audience for Experian, folks who are trying to improve their credit score. And so we can use each DSP's different, in market for credit card audience and use this data to really compare performance across each of them and figure out where's the best place to be buying this inventory.
Good question.
Hi, you mentioned creative a little bit, and I was just curious if you'd used any unique CTAs like a QR code in your CTV, and if so, have you seen a lift in site traffic?
We have not gotten there yet,
Okay.
and it's been the QR code specifically has been a topic that we've talked about a bunch of times, and I feel like we're almost there. We also have some. We also being a credit bureau, we have some limitations in what we can do and where we can send people from that. So working through that, but I do think that's the evolution also, right? I mean, linear is never going to have these capabilities that the interactive campaign, the interactive ad units, being able to use your login data on Hulu or Roku, to start an account. Like those things are, that's really getting like into performance-based video buying, and I think I could see that being being kind of the next step, and the next step for us. I could definitely see that.
Yeah, I think engagement rates are always a challenge with QR codes, but some of these vendors are coming out with new features where it'll pre-populate your phone number or email or something to send you a link and make it a little easier to actually complete the transaction there. So it's definitely something we are exploring.
I have a question. Did you test other measurement platforms before choosing iSpot, and what made you choose iSpot?
Yeah, great question. We did. I think over the course of last summer of 2021, we met with really every major cross-channel measurement vendor in the space. And we at Camelot, we kind of built out our own scorecard of each vendor, looking at things like what are their blind spots. Not every vendor can measure into YouTube or Hulu or Netflix or Roku DSP or Amazon DSP. There is no one that can give you a full view of everything that you're buying. So which one's best fit with what we're trying to do from a buying strategy? And we're looking at things like what is the quality of your panel, and I think that's one that iSpot really has a good advantage of how big is the panel, what are the sources, where you're getting your data from, is any of it unique, and what methodology are you using then to expand to extrapolate that this particular TV to the national census. And then from there, I think the reporting capabilities were a main thing for us, a main consideration. One thing iSpot has is really quick time to insights on the linear side. We can show an ad on Sunday and see exact performance from it on Tuesday morning. Whereas some other vendors that could be a 3 to 6 week delay. And, we're really using this tool for in-flight optimizations on a daily basis. And being able to get that real-time reporting has been really key for us. Cool.
One more question.
Thank you, guys. Great panel. Just a quick one. You mentioned earlier about one of the tactics to extending that incrementality was suppressing folks who had been exposed to a linear TV ad. Curious a little bit on that, because there is an extrapolation methodology, right? So how does that all factor in? Is it just limited to maybe that small sample that actually had that exposure, or are you extrapolating out to more folks like that? And maybe a little bit on that.
Yeah, good question. I could go on deep into this, but we've been A/B testing a lot of different ways to do it. A lot of different data sources. Pricing is a big piece of it too. I would like to take a deterministic route on this. Like, I don't want to extrapolate my linear exposed audience because I want to reach the people who look like my linear exposed audience, right? I don't want to be suppressing them on OTT. So we are, the challenge with this approach is scale. And, if we're looking at just the Inscape panel, for example, and suppressing everyone who has a Vizio TV who's seen the ad, that's like 12% market share. And so is it worth paying a CPM on every single impression in order to suppress just that 12% who have seen my ad? We're doing some testing to figure out like what's the break even of that stuff, and doing that with a bunch of different data sources. And so the answer is it depends. We're testing a lot. One more question back there.
Hi, hello. Can you talk a little bit about creativity and how do you optimize your creatives based on the results of reports, or if you're doing that or not?
We are, I think, to experience like unique value play, like actually one thing that works well for us is, you can actually use your streaming devices to improve your credit score. So like if you're paying your Netflix or Hulu bill on time, you can plug that into Experian and improve your credit score. So we're on Hulu showing that message. And iSpot is proving that out, that like, hey, this message performs really well for us on this particular inventory when comparing to just some more general testimonials.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. I've always thought about when I'm streaming what I want to see commercial wise. What's the creative that I want to see? Is it this like hardcore, like the DR stuff that you see, or you're at a point where you want to be entertained, and so you want an entertaining spot. And so we've played with both sides, as I mentioned before. But I think for the most part, we optimize based on performance. So I mean, if we see one spot that's winning, like it doesn't matter what it is, what the audience is, like we go there. And and now that we have kind of that view, we can throw all of our creatives in, and we can optimize and figure out which one's doing best. So creative is a big factor, but we kind of let the machine figure it out a lot of the times. But I mean, if I have a huge brand new John Cena campaign for a new product enhancement, I'm going to be running that probably 80% of the time. So I guess it can go both ways, but performance usually wins out.
Awesome. Thank you guys for your questions. Appreciate that.
Yeah, quick round of applause for our guests, Isaac, Doug, and Steve.